Hello and welcome to another episode of Computershare's Ask the Experts series, where today I'm joined by my colleague Maddie Scrafton, the Managing Director of UK Governance Services, and we're talking about new director training as it pertains to IPO or newly listed companies. So Maddie, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Jason. Good to be here.
All right, so my first question for you is, why should or does a director need any training at all for a newly listed company?
So I suppose being on the board of a listed company brings a huge amount of responsibility. Directors need to understand the broader legal, regulatory and corporate governance requirements on both on the company and on themselves as individuals. There'll often be new directors who are joining the board around the time of the IPO. They will need a robust induction to the business, as well as on their own obligations and the role of the board. Then you'll have, some companies who are planning to IPO, well, most will have board directors who perhaps have been on that board for a while, know the company well, but don't have any listed company experience. So they'll really need to understand the listing obligations and get a view of the expectations on themselves and really how the organisation is likely to change.
Interesting. So tell me more about training. What sort of training should they be thinking about?
So, probably quite a lot, and more than some people think that they need to worry about it. It's really important to provide some training or an induction, really, in advance of listing, so that the directors are ready for day one as a listed company. Lots is going to change. But also, it's important to see training, I think, as a sort of ongoing programme of development for the board members. The world is changing so fast, and in particular in relation to technology, geopolitical landscape, the expectations of shareholders, other stakeholders. And whilst directors can't possibly be experts on everything, it's vital that they have an awareness of how that environment is changing around them and around the organisation, because they need to be there to provide sufficient challenge and support to management. I think understanding the organisation itself is a key part of an induction, particularly for these directors that are new to the business, which is often the case just before IPO. They need to understand the existing strategy, what the business does, how it's structured. They'll need to meet key members of the management team, of course made far more difficult in a virtual world, because nothing quite beats face-to-face meeting, but I think we've all learned how to work around that. Directors also need to have a really good understanding of their obligations, things like market abuse regulations, PDMR requirements, directors' duties. But from a really practical, basic level, it's actually really important that they understand what's going to be expected from them as a member of the board. When will they receive board papers? What should they be doing in preparation in advance of a board meeting? Who should they contact if they have any issues? There's lots of different angles to come from on training.
Well, it sounds like a lot to consider, and it sounds like there is a bit of a learning curve. So, how does Computershare deliver this training to those board members? What's the context? Are we live? Are we virtual? Is there a curriculum that they can expect?
It really, really varies. So, it can be sort of, e-learning that they need to do. It can be face-to-face training. It can be helping to develop existing training that the organisations have. My view is that the best training has real-life examples in it, real-life scenarios and case studies that are very specifically relevant to that organisation and the angle that the board will see it from. So that can kind of help bring it to life for directors, because sometimes as a director you're kind of sitting there going, oh God, training, I don't necessarily want to do this. If they're as non-executive directors will be perhaps on 3 or 4 boards, they've got to potentially do the same thing again. So making it interesting is pretty important. I think people learn in different, they have different learning styles. So trying to cater for that a little bit. Some people, especially board directors, they're amazing at absorbing huge amounts of text. Others need to see things visually. So, thinking about delivering it in different ways is really important. And then thinking about, if you're giving them information, how can they access it? Can they get it online? Can they, get it while they're traveling? Can they read it easily on an iPad? So it's just thinking about all those different angles, really.
Yeah. Well, definitely some good thoughts on what to think through for director training in a post-IPO world. Thanks for joining me today and for sharing your insights.
Thanks very much.